Hey guys, I'm Eric. You're watching Notes Nerds, and we're going to be talking about the console wars. Alright guys, so we're going to do a little bit something different here, and as you can see, I'm using my green screen, unless I've been sucked into the cyberverse somehow and a cyber landscape is careening past me. Otherwise, I've got troubles. So we're going to be talking about the ever so wonderful topic of the console wars. Just the idea brings a massive, massive headache to my freaking brain. So the console wars have been going on since days of old, when consoles first hit the market. Yeah, annoying. Yo, my console's better than your console. Not necessarily. Look, folks, this is how it boils down. Console wars kind of stem back to the notion of buyer's remorse. The whole notion that you spend a lot of money on a console and you buy it, and you want to make sure it's the best console out there, and you're going to adamantly stand behind the purchase and make sure everybody knows that you made the right choice, even though you might not have. So it boils down that console wars is just a marketing ploy that we've all have pretty much bought into and have been suckered into the believing. And unfortunately, the modern media still caters and panders to the notion that there's a console war. Forbes did a recent article about how, why the PlayStation and Sony has left Microsoft behind, whereas another author of a similar article talked about how Microsoft left Sony behind. Well, what if we were to say that Nintendo left them behind 3 years ago and they still haven't caught up? I mean, we could sit here and make that argument, but why? First of all, the Nintendo Switch itself is a wonderful device. It fits a certain niche, and of course it caters to its Nintendo fans. The PlayStation and the Microsoft Xbox, the next generation consoles, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, they have an interesting concept. Sony is sticking to the console as the heart and soul of the gaming market that they're catering to. Whereas Microsoft is venturing off into, one, you have the dedicated console in your house, but also you will have the ability to take your games on the go regardless of where the go is. And that's going to be on your phone and or your tablet using the xCloud service and also the console streaming service in your home or abroad. The concept is really cool. And I think, and Sony technically has that ability as well. So we're not looking at, both consoles doing things completely different. They both are doing things similar. And that's why the idea that the console wars is a ridiculous and highly, it never even actually had a point of existing in the first place. Back in the days of Nintendo, the Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis, I mean, the idea there was silly in its own right. Yes, you had games that appeared on the Sega Genesis versus games that appeared on the Super Nintendo that didn't cross over, like Streets of Rage is a great example, and certain certain Super Nintendo exclusives like Konami's TMNT Turtles in Time. But that didn't mean that, one console was better than the other. They both had their own powers and their own weaknesses. The Super Nintendo had a weaker processor but had great graphical capabilities, whereas the Sega Genesis had a much more powerful 68,000 Motorola chipset inside of it, but still lacked some of the power that the Super Nintendo was able to provide. And both systems took advantage of what they had, and we're still seeing it all the way up till to now. PlayStation versus Saturn versus N64, they were all three great systems. The problem is that, again, it boils back to the notion that we make a purchase that is anywhere from $200 to $500 on a brand new system, and we're going to ensure that our investment, if you will, is going to be the right purchase, because the last thing any of us want to do is make a purchase of that caliber and find out that the system isn't supported in 1, 2, 3 years later down the road. Now, I don't see that happening. Microsoft's Xbox platform. What I expect to see out of this is, one, we have our console, it's going to be in the house, it is obviously more powerful than the Xbox One X, as we've already discovered with information being put out there by Microsoft. The PlayStation 5 is talked about having very similar hardware. So again, the console wars is pointless when all the consoles are nowadays almost identical in hardware. The real issue here is with Microsoft, they're going with a decentralized concept, and Sony's going with a centralized. Sony has had some interesting business practices since its inception into the video game industry, and Microsoft kind of piggybacked its way in as well, thanks to Sega. So, I mean, we could sit here and discuss the ins and outs of business practices between the two of them and how Nintendo has just kind of been doing its own thing. Console wars is a silly, silly notion. And I wish we would get into the realm of just getting past it. Console exclusivity on certain titles is almost non-existent nowadays. Companies like Microsoft are putting their games on not just their console, but also on the PC market, because Microsoft has always had a very strong computer presence, thanks to Windows. Sony has not. I mean, they did at one time produce computers, the VAIO line of PCs and laptop devices, but they've since then gotten out of that industry simply because it is a very tight, very competitive market, and especially in comparison to the console market, where the console market only is able to maintain 3 major products and everybody else is just along for the ride. You know, either it's flashback consoles or it's very specialized, all-in-one, does everything but not everything done well kind of concepts like the Android TV or Apple TV, Roku, etc. So as a consumer, I would much prefer to have every console under the sun. And as a collector, I kind of do. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody can afford, and even I cannot, definitely not, afford all the latest and greatest. I mean, it took me a couple of years before I got into the previous generation, the current generation of consoles, simply because it's not cheap. Using services from Microsoft is why I went the Microsoft route rather than Sony or Nintendo. Nintendo's online presence is almost horrible. Sony's is finally catching up. I remember the days of the PS2, and PS3 never impressed me. The Microsoft's Xbox Live service has always been, I guess we could say, the pinnacle, the measure to which all others have to attain in their online capabilities. Even with Sony's being as good as it is nowadays, it's still lacking in comparison, in my opinion. And that's not as a fanboy, but in an analytical position where Microsoft got it right back in the days of the original Xbox. So with the Xbox Series consoles, they're just carrying forward what's been working, and they've only grown with like the Xbox cloud services, their ultimate game packages, everything. So Sony has a long way to go. But Sony has learned from their mistakes thanks to the PS2 era, where gaming was, when it was provided by online services, Demonware, GameSpy, services that are almost dead or forgotten nowadays, they've gone to a centralized server system similar to Microsoft's. So once we see full compatibility between all of the different consoles and their walled gardens, and they all play well together, which Microsoft's really pushing for, I think the console wars will officially be dead, in the sense that, you know, if you have an Xbox and you have a Sony and you have a Nintendo and this person over here is on a PC, everybody's going to be able to play the same game. Let's use Warframe as an example here. Everybody's playing Warframe on their favorite console, but guess what? Everybody's playing together. The only people left keeping the console wars alive are those who just are petty. Don't be petty. Get over it. You made a purchase. I'm glad you made that purchase. Enjoy your purchase. Just don't act like you're superior to those around you, because people like me who've been gaming for the better part of 35 plus years now have seen the console wars come and go in its various flavors and forms, and we've outgrown that notion. We know it doesn't exist, and it's pointless to try to keep pushing it. Let it go. It's done. So guys, thank you for tuning into this interesting little episode. It's a bit of a weird one, I admit, but I'm experimenting with a few things. One, I got a nice green screen behind me, as I pointed out at the beginning of the episode. I got some awesome new lights right here and a new one right here, and I got my old one down there that's not on. But I'm trying things a little different, mostly because I want to be able to provide you guys with better content. I don't want to go into the news aspect that some channels continue to push, because, well, there's plenty of channels that already do video game news and nerd culture news, etc. I just want to keep doing interesting, fun episodes that I find fun and interesting, that I think you guys would enjoy. Hit that like button below. This way I know if you liked it. Hit the dislike button if you didn't like it. I mean, that also tells me. And definitely, please, leave a comment in the comment section, because, well, likes and dislikes can tell me so much, but words mean everything. So guys, stay tuned for more great content here on Notes and Nerds. I'm your host, Eric. Hey guys, if you want to help support Notes and Nerds, please go to our Patreon at patreon.com/notesnerds, where you can give a little to get a lot back. Tiers are only starting at just $1 full. If you also want to help support us by owning some of our personal merch, please go to shop.notesnerds.com, where you can purchase anything you like t-shirts, stickers, posters, totes, and a whole lot more. Don't forget to go to all of our social medias at YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, where you can subscribe, follow, like, all that good stuff to keep up with what we're doing. Also, go to our website at www.notesnerds.com, where you can check out our blog, you can check out our calendar for convention dates coming up, where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing, all that good stuff. So, thank you, and tune in next time.